In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Well, we actually go to page 15 of our discourse and pragmatics course with the speech acts. Okay? This is a new discussion in the book. Well, we have the topic, the speech acts, and again we have understanding concepts like direct speech acts, felicity conditions, indirect speech acts, and interactional and transactional functions of, in fact, language or speech acts. Well, let us begin. There's a short introduction. The introduction actually has got something like reads 1999 about George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw. You know this guy. This is very important, in fact, figure in the 20th century in the United States. And he was, in fact, a critic. And maybe you have heard his name, George Bernard Shaw. Okay? He was a critic. He was a critic of the American, in fact, society and everything like that. Anyway, to a hostess who had sent an invitation stating that on a certain day she would be at home, George Bernard Shaw succinctly replied, "So well, George Bernard Shaw." What does it mean? George Bernard Shaw was actually given an opportunity to be, in fact, in one ضيافة. Okay? And this is the way that they do. So when you want to have something like this, in English you say that you are at home, in fact, for your ضيافة. Okay? For your ضيافة. It means that, well, actually guests come to you at your home and you provide them with different kinds of, let's say, flowers, different kinds of fruit, cookies, dinner, etc., etc. Like wedding. Okay, like a wedding. Wedding is a kind of, in fact, invitation to a ضيافة. Okay, anyway. He actually says something like this. So the invitation goes like this. I am at home at your address. Okay, which means that you are going to, in fact, have a party. Okay, ضيافة. What does George Bernard Shaw say? So, George Bernard Shaw actually says something like this under the invitation card. So well, George Bernard Shaw at home. It means that at my own home, George Bernard Shaw's home. What does it mean? It means I don't want to come to your home. Okay? That's it. So, page 15, the 6 lines to the bottom of the page says something like this. At the risk of killing a funny tale, we can explain what happens here in terms of speech acts. The hostess's invitation will have read something like this. Mrs. Eleanor Higgins will be at home 10 April from 7 to 9 p.m. at his home, at her home, which are words usually taken at performing the speech act of inviting. If you want to invite somebody formally through cards, through papers, you actually write these types of things on a piece of card. Okay? And you know that for the weddings, actually, we have something like these types of cards. Anyway, Shaw means George Bernard Shaw pretended to read it literally as a statement of where she would be, and responded in kind. His answer consisted of words to be taken as performing the speech act of declining an invitation. Declining an invitation. Saying no to an invitation. Declining an invitation means saying no. Will you come to my home tonight? Say, I've got something to do. This is, I've got something to do tonight. It means that you don't want to go to his or her home, a friend of yours, suppose. Anyway, this is an introduction to speech acts between two types of acts. In the inviting George Bernard Shaw to somebody's home and declining by George Bernard Shaw. Let's go to page 16. What are then speech acts? Page 16, line 1 goes like this. Austin, 1962. Austin, 1962, defined speech acts as actions performed in saying something. Again, I'm repeating. Actions performed in saying something. When you say something, it's more than just saying it. There are actions that are performed, but by what you say. These are speech acts, language acts, speech acts. Actions performed by language. Actions performed by language. Back to page 15. There are two types of actions performed, one by George Bernard Shaw in declining the invitation, and the other by his host, in inviting. These are actions taking place. In inviting George to her home, by the host. Now, there are two types of actions. Let us talk about other things in speech acts. Speech acts said that the actions performed when an utterance is produced can be analyzed on 3 different levels. Line 1, 2, 3 of page 16. Let us look at the action in the conversation below. Well, actually, you remember the speech act in your course with me. I'm going to repeat these parts in order to, in fact, go to page 17, which there are things that are new, In the conversation below, there's a kind of bun lunch in the university. I've been to Canada and I've seen something like a bun lunch there. A bun lunch is something like this, that the first day of the semester, of course, before the coronavirus pandemic, before that. Well, all students actually go there, and there's a kind of lunch by the university. It's something like, I actually was there, and it was something like, in fact, at the beginning of, it was the semester, and the university, in fact, invited all students there. There was a kind of hamburger, for all the students who attended the bun lunch, free, without giving money, free, In an open space, there was something like a grill there, and they actually grilled the hamburgers and put them inside bread and gave them there, and there was different kinds of salads there for the students to actually use different kinds of, let's say, salads, etc., etc. And in fact, what you may call it, I think in Farsi, well, ketchups, different kinds of things like ketchups, mayonnaise, etc., etc. Anyway, this is an example of the same type of conversation between, in fact, students taking part in a bond luncheon. Okay. MM talks to AM and AM talks to BM, and there are three of them actually in this conversation. MM, AM, and BM. They are talking to each other. MM says something like this: I think I might go and have another bun. Bun is a kind of bread like this. The bread that is used for the hamburger is like this. Okay, look at my hand, and inside it we have, in fact, different types of. In fact, there's a piece of meat, there's a piece of hamburger, and the different kinds of things that is added to the hamburger. It's like this. Actually, you have eaten a hamburger. I think I might go and have another bun. You say to your friend, or this MM says to his or her friends. AM says, I was going to get another one, another sandwich, another bun, another sandwich, another hamburger. BM says, could you get me a tuna and sandwich corn, please? And AM says, me too. Me as well. What is it? A very simple kind of some conversation on the surface of it. But let's go to deep inside it. This conversation is the same as the one actually repeated below on page 16, below the page. MM is the same as MM on top. AM is the same as AM on top. And BM is the same guy, the same person as BM on top. Let us compare these two. On the second one, we see, I express my intention to go and have another bun. I express my intention to go and have another bun. This is the meaning behind line 1 on top. Line 2 on top is the same as the one that we have here. I inform you that I was going to get another one. And line 3 says something like this, which goes with, could you get me a tuna and a sweet corn, please? Sweet corn 1, please. I request you to get me a tuna and a sweet corn 1. And line 4, again, it is a kind of request. I request you to get me 1 as well. So this is the story of speech acts. Speech acts are in fact speech which actually there are some actions inside them. That's why we call them speech acts. So speech acts could be something like expressing something, line 1. Informing something, like line 2. Requesting, like line 3 and 4 of this conversation. No difference. The one on top or the one below. So this is the gist of speech acts. Speech acts actually are used in many of MA thesis programs for the students of English as a second language, English as a foreign language, for the students like you, okay, TEFL students. And they actually go and write their thesis in these areas in our university or around the world, the same thing. Okay, I want to, in fact, say again that there are speech acts. Whatever we say include speech acts. Well, now let us talk about the three levels of speech act theory. The three levels of the speech act theories. Okay? Well, line 1 says something like this. The first level of analysis is the words themselves, which we call as locution. Locution means saying, to say something. Locution is a noun. Okay? So, maybe the word appears sort of, in fact, strange, weird, but actually it is not. Locution means speech. Okay? The first level of analysis is the word themselves. Okay? I think I might go and have another one. I was going to get another one. And so on. These are words themselves. So locutions are the words themselves, like these two examples. Okay? Like, I think I might go and have another one. Or another example. I was going to get another one. These are locutions. Okay? Locution means what is said. Line 2. Okay? Below the paragraph on top. The form of the words uttered. Okay? The act of saying something. Well, this is done. Number 1. Locution. Now, number 2. Well, this is still not. The act of saying something is known as locution. Well, when you perform an action by saying these words, so you say something like this. I think I might go and have another bun. When you say it, it's a locutionary act because you say something. There's an action behind it. There's an action inside. So, the act of saying something is called locutionary act. Act of saying, type, this type, okay? Type 1. Act of saying something. The action of saying something. Locutionary act. Locutionary act. Well, locution means saying. Act of saying. This is, of course, not part of what we studied in George Yule. You remember, this was not part of that. Now, let's go to the second level. Okay, the second level. The second level is what the speakers are doing with their words. What are you doing with the words? Do you want to inform or do you want to warn? Or do you want to request? Or do you want to have a question? Do you want to have things like that? This is level 2. When there is something like a locutionary act, the locutionary act actually includes something like what is put inside it. What is put inside it? Let us see. Line 4 says the second level is the speakers are doing with, the second level is what the speakers are doing with their words. AM and MM are asserting, and expressing intentions about their actions. They actually say what they want to say. And PM and AM are requesting, asking somebody to do something for them. Okay? Requesting action on the part of the hearer. This is known as elocutionary act. Elocutionary force inside the act. Elocutionary means what is put inside it. What is put inside your locution. So it's a combination of in, meaning inside, and locution means saying. What is put inside your saying? Elocutionary force. Elocutionary force. Okay? What is done? The following line says, what is done in uttering the words, the function of the words, the specific purpose that the speakers have in their minds. You said something. What? But tell me why and how you said it. You say, I have got an intention to say something. I want you to do something for me. This is a kind of elocutionary force. This is a kind of speech act. Okay? You want somebody to do something for you. Okay? This is elocutionary force. So, these are examples of, let's say, what is done with what is done in uttering the words, the function of the words, the specific purpose that the speakers have in their mind. Okay? Examples of speech acts are like this. Inviting. Remember on page, what page was it? Well, on page 15, between George Bernard Shaw and somebody else. Actually, that person invited George Bernard Shaw. Inviting. Advising, like the fathers, like the mothers. In fact, advising. Promising. You promise to do something. This is an action. This is an action. By saying things, you actually perform the action or the act of promising. This is a speech act. Ordering, excusing, apologizing are other examples of speech acts. Okay, so this is level 2. Now let us go to level 3. The level 3 talks about the last level of our analysis is the result of the words. The result of the words, the result of the locution, the result of what you said is in fact in the form of perlocutionary effect. Okay? Let us see. MM gets up and brings AM and BM a tuna and sweet corn bun for each. So he goes or she goes to the bun lunch services there and brings 2, in fact, buns, 2 sandwiches. Okay? One to one friend and the other to another friend. Okay? Okay. This is known as perlocutionary effect. Remember? This is effect. That was force. Okay? That was act. So we have first act, then we have force behind it, and the effect. Okay? What is done by uttering the words? Its effects on the hearers, and the hearer's reaction. Okay? So when you say something, you put something inside it as a force, and the result is the effect on the speakers, on others. Okay? This is the gist of speech act theory. So speech act theory has got these three levels. Number one, locutionary act. Number two, illocutionary force. And number three, perlocutionary effect. Perlocutionary effect. Remember these three things. Done, finished. Okay? Well, this classification was not part of Giorgio's study, so I actually worked line by line in order to explain what we mean by speech acts with these three levels. Well, now let us go to the next paragraph, performative hypothesis. When somebody says something, when somebody gives you a kind of theory, he develops it and comes to the conclusion that this is something very good, that this is something that happened to Austin. So Austin actually the first line of the paragraph in the middle of the page 16 says, Austin developed but soon abandoned the idea that there's something like performative hypothesis. Austin found that there are thoughts that for all sentences there are speech acts, different types of speech acts. But finally he found that others came to say, no, not all speech acts are, or not all sentences, in fact, sentences include speech acts, and there are not, in fact, performative verbs inside many of them, but actually a good amount of them are like what actually Austin developed. So, this is why actually the book says, Austin developed but soon abandoned the performative hypothesis. What is it? That behind every utterance there is a performative verb. Like inviting, like excusing, like ordering, like promising, like apologizing. Okay? Like firing. Firing means, in fact, sending somebody out of his office. Okay, so first Austin came to say that there's something like performative hypothesis, but actually they said no, we don't have this type of hypothesis, but many verbs include, in fact, these types of verbs. I'm just going to finish this part. And on the next part, page 16, I'm going to, in fact, continue the last lines of the paragraph, the last parts of the page 16. We are going to classify these important things for language teachers. Well, speech act theory. Okay? Just wait.